See you tonight. I'm Brooke Baldwin sitting in for Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, America's most advanced weapons hacked by the Chinese. According to this report that was obtained by the Washington Post, Chinese hackers have breached more than 24 American weapon systems that are essential to our national defense. Among them, you have the F-A-18 fighter jet, the Littoral Combat Ship, the Aegis ballistic missile defense system, and the advanced Patriot missile batteries. U.S. defense and other officials, they're downplaying their report, saying that some of the information is dated. But if Chinese cyber spies are able to obtain some of America's most sensitive weapons technology, isn't that a national security concern? Out front with me tonight, we have Colonel Cedric Leighton. He is a former joint staff at the Pentagon and a national security analyst. So welcome to you. And Kevin Mandia is a top cybersecurity expert who did a separate report this year on Chinese military hackers. So gentlemen, welcome. And Colonel Leighton, let me just begin with you because, you know, from everything I've read, that the biggest fear here, obviously, if in fact this is all true, is the Chinese stealing our sensitive information about these specific weapon systems, and then if and when there is a conflict, they would inherently have an edge. I want you to tell me how much of an edge they would have.
Well, Brooke, it's it's hard to say exactly how that edge would manifest itself. But if you start going into each of these weapon systems, the ones that you outlined, plus a whole dozen other weapon systems that are on this list, you could have a significant effect on the outcome of a future battle. Because what you would do is you would go into things like the source code for these weapon systems, and all of them are basically computer driven. And at that particular point, when you needed to, you could change the way that weapon system worked potentially. And if that happens a multitude of times, it could affect not only the outcome of individual battles, but it could possibly affect the outcome of a future conflict.
So then the next obvious question is, okay, well, what can the Pentagon do about this? And Kevin, to you, because the crux of the public report, it was the Washington Post that got their hands on this confidential report. But the crux of the public report is that the Pentagon is unprepared for a full-out cyber attack. Does that make you nervous?
You know, I know we're doing everything we can about it, but here's just an unfortunate truth, is that technology and how we advance our technology is going faster than how we advance the security and safeguards for that technology. So there always is a gap, and we're never going to get it to be infinitesimal. So there's always going to be some risk to cyber espionage.
So it's that gap that perhaps is what the Chinese have seized upon. Colonel, back to you. Let me just run through again, just for our viewers who may not be familiar with these specific weapon systems. As you mentioned, there are dozens others, but specifically tonight, we're talking about the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, the Black Hawk helicopter, which many of us are familiar with by just news, the F-A-18 fighter jet, and the Aegis ballistic missile defense system. How critical, sir, are these to our national defense?
Extremely critical. For example, let's take the Joint Strike Fighter. That is really the quintessential new American weapon system for the first part of this century. It costs $1.4 trillion so far, has been plagued by a bunch of cost overruns. But the reason for those cost overruns is because of many new added features to the aircraft. Plus, it has to not only meet Air Force requirements, but also Marine and Navy requirements as well. And then there are the foreign requirements. So the program costs a lot of money. Every time that something like this happens, where the Chinese or others get in to the weapon system and hack into the plans for that weapon system, it means that new plans have to be developed, and those costs go up even further.
So the thing is, and we know this, that the Chinese espionage, we're not breaking news here. I mean, this is not new. We know that the concern has surged. We know that the administration has expressed the concerns to Chinese government. So, Kevin, let me end with you, because reading this Washington Post piece, this is what the Chinese government insists that it does not conduct cyber espionage on U.S. agencies or companies, and the government spokesman often complained that Beijing is a victim of U.S. cyber attacks. So what more can the U.S. do?
Well, I think it's time we embrace that this is the new normal. The Chinese are going to constantly make these denials, even though they have one of the most controlled internet presences on the planet. So they're very well aware of what's going on coming out of their networks. This is just it. We've got to be mindful of the security gap we have. We got to keep closing that gap as fast as we can, and we just got to give the best fight we can. There's no single technical answer that's going to solve this. There's going to have to be some diplomacy and some non-technical ways to address these issues.
Colonel, final thoughts beyond closing the gap, which is clearly key.
Well, it is absolutely key, and I think what we also need to do is we need to make sure that we have the right policies in place, and what that means is a real national cyber strategy that actually takes into account everything that Kevin just said, plus also develops a public and private partnership that we really don't have in this country like some other countries have, and that's going to be the key to success in this area.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you so much. Colonel Cedric, Leighton, and Kevin Mandia, I appreciate it so much for coming up front tonight. I appreciate it.